Howdy-ho, Andrew here, aka Kelp here. Welcome to the Onion Buns and welcome to another episode of React Friday. So, last 2 weeks have been draining. Really draining. Over the Charlie Kirk assassination and the fallout, and I've been doing videos, and I got to get away from that and just get into some fluff. Hence, The Witcher TV show, because there's no more bigger piece of fluff out there, is there? Well, maybe Rings of Power or the canceled Wheel of Time, but how about we create a new saying for all three shows? Fluff and fluff, fluff, fluff and fluff, fluff. There. So, they've come out with the Season 4 trailer. The trailer nobody's been asking for. Just doesn't exist. I was super hyped for Season 1 when this show came out, and I actually did enjoy Season 1 for the most part. I never liked any of the casting except for Henry. I'm going to be straightforward and honest about that. Henry was the only cast member I thought was properly cast. Now, I am a huge fan of the books. One sec. Now, hell, I can't find where I have the books right now. They may be upstairs. I'm moving from the basement to the upstairs into my office because I just finished painting and setting up my office for future filming. So I may have the books up there, but I still have these two down here. So, now, I am a huge fan of the books. I own every single book in paperback, and I own every single book on Audible. I've played all three games, loved all three games. Witcher 1 is my favorite of the series, but I enjoyed all three. So when this show was announced and Henry was cast, I was pumped because Henry would have been one of my three choices for the role of girl. And then I saw who they cast for Yennefer, and my hopes kind of sank because, well, the girl is attractive. There's no doubt that she's attractive. Yennefer is a once-in-a-lifetime beauty. I'm sorry, the girl they cast for Yennefer is not that. The girl who I wanted was, what's her name? Who I wanted was Eva Green to play Yennefer. I think Eva Green would have been the perfect cast for Yennefer. And don't even get me started on the rest of the characters. You know, like who they cast for Trish was an abomination. All the race swapping and everything. I've been accused of being a traditionalist, and I kind of agree with them. When you have source material, I want the show to follow the source material. That's the writer is who created these characters. So when you do an adaptation, you owe it to that writer to portray his characters or her characters properly as they were written. So if Trish is a redhead, busty redhead, you get a busty redhead. If all the sorceresses are white, because The Witcher is based on European lore, and at that time there was very few black people around. It's not racism, it's just the way it was in the setting. So you stay true to that setting. It's just like if you did I'm a big fan of the Black Panther comic when it first came out. I don't look at the comics nowadays because it's all been twisted and manipulated and just, it's gross. But when Black Panther originally came out, he was one of my favorite comics. And if they did a show on Wakanda, I would have expected 100% black actors and actresses because that is what the character was. That is what the setting was. You know, if you came out with an entire white cast or Oriental cast for Wakanda, I would have said, no, this is bullshit. You honor and follow the source material. So I hated the casting of The Witcher right off the bat, but I gave the show a chance. And the first season I quite liked. Honestly, I didn't really care for the series stuff, and the time jumping was kind of confusing at first, but I got used to it. So other than that, I quite liked the first season. The second season, I think I made it about halfway through and I shut it off. It was obvious they were not going to follow the books. They were not going to respect the source material, and I was done. And then I read the third season lost 60% of its viewership in season 3. Wasn't surprised. And then Henry quit after season 3. And I have absolutely no problem with him doing that because they weren't following the source material and he wanted to follow the source material. You know, I don't understand modern Hollywood. Just follow the source material. When you run out of source material, that's when you can start writing your own stories. And hopefully they work. Like you look at Game of Thrones, those first number of seasons were masterful, even though they didn't follow the books specifically because the books were too big to fit into 10 episode seasons. But they still honored the books and adapted them with respect until they ran out of source material, and that's on George R.R. Martin. And then we found out that the they're not very good writers, and the rest of the seasons got progressively worse. They sucked. It was a shame, you know, but if Martin had finished his books, I'm sure they would have done a masterful job of adapting the books right up to the end. So that's on Martin. Sapkowski, he finished these books, so this is on the showrunner. So, yeah. So anyway, we're going to do a react video today of one of my favorite entertainment channels, Nerdrotic. Now, I've never tried to do a react on his videos. He doesn't leave a lot of time for pausing and reacting, so it might be rough. We'll have to see how it works out. I'll try to edit it so it's smooth as can be, but yeah, this is something I'm passionate about, and he does a really good job in covering this story, so let's give it a try. Oh, and I'm also going to try a new format. In the past, I would have when I would do a react video, I'd move my screen to the top left corner, but I'd have the entire screen running the video behind me, but that would cut off some of the picture. So what I'm trying, I'm still learning this whole camera stuff. So please leave in comments what you think of this. I would really like some feedback on this. I'm going to try to do a box for his video, and then I'm going to have my little box in the corner, and there's going to be some dead space black that I'm going to have to figure out how to put a background back there. I don't know how to do that yet, so it's just going to be black for this video. But let me know how this works for you. Like, is this better, or would it just be better if I left it full screen and just put my little box in the corner? Feedback would be really appreciated. All right, let's get started.
I'm the most annoying guy on set because I'm saying, excuse me, you do realize that this should be happening and they wouldn't do that, and you haven't read this, that means this would be impossible. And everyone's just going, Henry, just shut up and do the thing. And I'm like, I don't want to do the thing because he wouldn't do it this way, and he can do this.
The first thing he said to me was, I didn't write this, it's not my fault. This isn't me.
I know that he watches the episodes, I know that he likes them, but he does not actually want to be a day-to-day part of the process.
Just coming to the set and reading and giving notes. Listen, I like it, but maybe, just maybe, we could shift it a little bit here or there.
Okay, Blood Origin, this is really what killed the Witcher franchise for Netflix. That atrocity of a spin-off series. It was horrible, and it was horrible for all the reasons you would expect. It was woke, it was DEI, it had nothing to do with The Witcher at all, like nothing. Zilch, zero, nada. It was The Witcher's version of Star Wars Acolyte.
Never.
Maybe I gave them some ideas, but they never listened to me. They never listened.
Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you over 1 million enthusiasts of the find out portion of the fuck around and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. Netflix, in their infinite wisdom, decided to remind the world that their version of The Witcher still exists. And I can hear most of you now asking, it does? Yes, except this time, it's not going to feature Henry Cavill as a guest star in his own show surrounded by a bunch of fanfic feminist gobbledygook. Now we have Liam Hemsworth taking over for Henry Cavill as a guest star in his own show surrounded by a bunch of fanfic feminist gobbledygook. And it turns out this romanticy fanfic feminist gobbledygook was very expensive. We have learned very recently that this show cost Netflix over $500 million. Now, to be fair, you could probably find $500 million in change in Ted Sarandos's casting couch, but it's still a very expensive embarrassment and one that was easily avoidable. If you feel like not a lot of people have been talking about The Witcher, it's because they haven't since Henry Cavill left, including Netflix, who decided to drop their first clip late at night on a Saturday. And the reactions to this clip went down about as well as you would think. But before we get to that, let's take a little trip down memory, or in this case, Mammary Lane. Because as you know, the ladies of Hollywood want and deserve accolades for their successes, but they often seem to avoid the accountability for their failures, and I'm here for equality because I think women can fuck up just as much as men, because without a doubt, The Witcher was ruined by a woman.
This is a topic that drives me absolutely insane. Now, I play D&D with some people, and they're constantly harping on me. They're the ones that call me a traditionalist, and, oh, women power and women power, and and it drives me insane. I love strong women. I really do. Like, Atomic Blonde is one of my favorite spy thrillers in the last 15 years. Charlize Theron is, well, besides being an absolutely stunning beauty, she would have made a great Yennefer with black hair. And she can act. But she grabbed hold of that character and she ran with it and she made it her own. And I love that freaking movie. Jennifer Lawrence, when she did Red Sparrow, again, spy thriller, loved it. So Linda Hamilton for Terminator, loved her in Terminator. And the list goes on and on. I could sit here listing strong women actresses that had their own franchise and did excellent all day long. So it's not about the women, it's about the women doing it badly. And unfortunately, that's what we have nowadays. Like, the women in this show are not very good. No matter, there's a couple of them that are good. Like, I don't know their names. There was, I think it was the first episode of Witcher season 1 where he told the Butcher of Blavadin story, and the girl that played opposite, she was fantastic in that role. She was absolutely fantastic. And truth be told, when I watched it, I'm going, she should be Trish, And the lady that does the teacher in the sorcery school, she's fantastic in that role. So there is good, strong women actresses in this show. It's just they're rare. A lot of them are not very good at all. And the writing is atrocious because it's trying, Mammary, it's all about the women in this show. And I mean, that's fine. If you want to make a fantasy series and it's all about the women, you make a fantasy series and it's all about the women. And if it's good, I'll watch it. But The Witcher is the main character in The Witcher, and that's The Witcher. It's not about, even in the games, it's not about Yennefer and Triss. They're secondary characters. It's about Geralt. It's his story. And somehow he gets pushed back into a second or third character. I like later on he's going to mention, but Henry Cavill in season 3 had, I think it was 19 minutes of screen time in the entire season. That's not The Witcher, people. That's the Court of the Sorceresses. And if there's an audience for it, awesome. But we're seeing from the Witcher fans, there's no audience for this version that Netflix is putting out.
The Witcher premiered on December 20th, 2019, and while being mostly panned by critics, it was generally loved by audiences. Hell, I even liked it, giving it a 7 out of 10, and it was generally considered a success. And because it was epic fantasy, and it also premiered the same year as the disastrous Season 8, some were calling it the heir apparent to Game of Thrones.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
And that was despite all the concerns many Witcher fans had prior to Season 1 with the hiring of very questionable writers. But as they say, hindsight is 2020, and I would chalk up most of the success of season 1 to Henry Cavill. But unfortunately, it was Lauren Hisrich who took all.
Lauren Hisrich should have never been hired. She should never be hired in Hollywood again.
The credit and saw the success of season 1 as a man date, or in this case, a woman date, who went on to contort and vandalize the lore from the games and the books to fit something from her worldview, a Witcher for a modern audience. And that audience was the person she stares at in the mirror every day. The first real signs of trouble came from this little soundbite that turned out to be a dire warning from Henry Cavill prior to season 2.
The showrunner has a particular vision for the show and for the characters in the show. And I don't know if you've read the books, but the books, certainly the first few, is very much from a Geralt perspective. And so with the shift of the showrunner's vision, where it's an ensemble cast more so than a singular lead, and the perspective is shifted to be almost more of a Cirilla Yennefer perspective. And so it's about finding my character's place within that vision, and making sure that I do everything I can to be as faithful to the source material as possible that I can be within the structure set out for me.
And lo and behold, season 2 came out, butchering the lore of the book. It was based on blood of elves, and there was an unsurprising dramatic loss in viewership. After season 2, we would learn what led to this disaster and future disasters from former writer and producer Bo DeMeo, who was also the former writer and producer of X-Men 97, who is currently ripping Kevin Feige on the daily. DeMeo said, "I've been on a show, namely Witcher, where some of the writers actively dislike the books and games, even actively mocking the source material," DeMeo explained. "It's a recipe for disaster and bad for morale, and really bad for your show." Lauren Hisrich would even bitch openly about Henry's commitment to the lore. And Bo wasn't the only one. There's also the writer of The Witcher, Andrzej Sapkowski, saying this.
Maybe I gave them some ideas, but they never listened to me.
Now, I don't like this guy. So I didn't know who he was when I first got the Witcher game. I bought the first Witcher game off of Steam, and I played it, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the lore. I fell in love with the characters and everything. I had no clue who this guy was. So I went into the Witcher forums. No longer exist nowadays. I really do wish they existed, and these modern CD Projekt Red forums disappeared. And the books were not translated into English at this time. So I went into the forums. I'm like, how do I read these books? I don't read Polish. And they some of the forum users pointed me to fan translations. And that's how I read the first Witcher book originally. And I fell in love with the series. I fell in love with the characters, and I want to read these books. And when The Witcher 2 came out, it was such a massive success, with so much fanfare, that the books finally got translated into English, and I picked them all up, and I went through them, and I loved them. And for a while there, I was saying, oh yeah, I love Sapkowski's writing and everything. And then I started learning about the man, and he's not a nice guy. He's not a smart guy. He's not a good guy. He's a greedy, tubby piece of crap. Great writer, not a good person. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of him. But, as I said, it's his creation. Now, you can say it's not really his creation. It may be Elric. Like The Witcher has a lot of similarities to Elric. So, how much of it is Elric, how much of it is Sapkowski, who knows? I don't know. I'm not a writer. I've tried. I don't have that talent, so I will nod to the people that do. But I don't like him, and I think he harmed the games by all the bad press he gave the games. Even though the games are super successful and everything like that, just the drama he created around the games, I think, kind of soured people. But still, he wrote these books. So if he's giving you advice, you should listen, because you paid him for his source.
They never listen.
Then in October 2022, Henry announced via Instagram that he was leaving the show. And who could blame him? Because a couple of months after that, Netflix decided to release the Witcher prequel, Blood Origin, where they departed from the lore just a little bit and took the formidable, mighty, evil Aridin, the leader of the Wild Hunt, and turned him into a spurned, disgruntled gay man, making...
I can't believe they did that. Like, even for Hollywood, I can't believe they did that. Just like, what the hell were they thinking?
Blood Origin, a good candidate to be the worst fantasy series in a year where they released Willow and the Rings of Power. And that was followed by Witcher Season 3, where Henry Cavill is in only 1/3 of his own series. Unsurprisingly, viewership dropped again from Season 2 to Season 3, which was supposed to be based on Andrei Sapkowski's book A Time for Contempt, but it became crystal clear that Lauren Hishrich had contempt for the lore, the audience, and Henry Cavill. And as I've said before, Henry needs to fire his agent because he's been used as the bait and switch quite a bit, from The Witcher to Enola Holmes to Argyle. And while The Witcher died when Henry Cavill left, let's be real, the mortal wound started in Season 2. And that's where obviously Netflix made its biggest mistake. Instead of siding with Henry Cavill and, I don't know, hiring new writers, they stuck with Lauren Hisrich and her feminists. And now the heir apparent to Game of Thrones that was planned for 7 seasons was reduced to 5 and canceled. And the last 2 seasons are being filmed back to back, making them totally 2 seasons and not just one split up. No word yet on episode count, and no word yet on how much the budget was reduced, but considering this clip that they just decided to release in the middle of the night, it looks like a lot.
So yeah, they're filming Season 4 and Season 5. They've already announced the cancellation at the end of Season 5. So they're just, I have a theory. I can't prove it, but I think when they hired Liam Neeson on, or not Nielsen, that's the Naked Gun. When they hired Liam on, they gave him a contract for 2 seasons to get him on. They needed somebody with a name, and even though he doesn't have the name of Henry Cavill, or even his brother, or his older brother, he does have a name, and I think they had to give him 2 seasons, and that's why, and that's the only reason Season 4 and 5 are even being made. But that's my personal theory on the issue, because they don't have the viewership anymore, and the word of mouth is terrible. And Nerdrolic's right. They slipped this trailer in like at midnight. It was like, nobody's watching, nobody's paying attention. Let's just slide it in, and maybe nobody will notice it, sort of deal. I love the Benny Gunn music.
And of course, the responses are what you would think, including but not limited to people saying Liam Hemsworth is the Temu Witcher. But of course, Elric fans will say The Witcher is Temu Elric. Again, this was a clip, not a fan film, released at about 8 p.m. Eastern on a Saturday night, on a weekend dominated by the very sad news of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, rest in peace. And considering during Netflix's big Ta-Dum presentation, where they showcase all the content coming out over the next couple of years, and they didn't speak a single word or show a single frame from The Witcher, it looks like to you they're trying to bury this. I would agree, and can you blame them? I mean, admittedly, it looks like a very expensive fan film, but a fan film nonetheless. And poor Liam Hemsworth, you know, you and Henry both need to fire your agents. I guess the good news is, based on precedent, Liam's only going to be in about 1/3 of his own series, so we won't have much work to do other than running around with a gay Yasker while they follow the main character of the series, Yennefer, in search of the girl who's the key to everything, Ciri.
So I didn't watch Season 3, but when I read that they turned Dandelion, they renamed him Yasker, when they turned Dandelion gay, I was pissed. Because Dandelion is the ultimate womanizer in the books and in the video games, actually. You know, he's not bisexual, he's not gay, this is very clearly laid out. The only people that do this shit is, the fanfics that try to make every character gay. That's their agenda. Whatever, it's fanfics, who cares? But for Netflix to do that, I was super pissed when I read that. And I've never watched season 3. I'm never going to watch season 3. I'm not going to watch season 4 or 5. And like with Wheel of Time, that pisses me off. Because Wheel of Time is my favorite fantasy series of all time, book-wise. And The Witcher, it's in my top 5. And yet, 2 of my top 5 favorite book series, fantasy book series, I've been robbed of enjoying their adaptations on film. And that's unforgivable. That's absolutely unforgivable. Plus, you see on the picture, Siri, Hollywood needs to talk to their starlets about enough with the plastic surgery and the cheek reductions and the lip implants and the ass implants and all of that. They look ridiculous. She looks like a ghoul to me.
Princess Cirilla! Siri!
Siri! Where's the girl?
Where's Siri? He's looking for Siri. I need to find Siri. Where is Cirilla? Have you seen Cirilla? Siri! Siri! Where are you, Siri?
Siri, Siri, are you here? We're looking for Siri.
Where's Siri?
And occasionally fighting a monster that's some variation of a woman who has been subjugated or enslaved by an evil man, so we should feel really bad when she's slaughtered. And ultimately, the wild hunt will just be Eridan looking for a new boyfriend. And yes, once that trailer was dropped late Saturday night on YouTube and Twitter, the responses were unsurprising. Almost universal support for Henry Cavill, people claiming they're just not going to watch this show, and to be fair, a lot of sympathy for Liam Hemsworth. And I have to echo the sentiments from the first comment I see. Gotta respect them for keeping the comment section open. I also have to agree with this one. Remember, guys, don't blame Liam, blame the producers.
Yep.
And Lauren Hisrich. Another comment says, you had the chance to make a show that could rival Game of Thrones in its heyday. All you had to do was respect the source material and cast characters who actually look like those described in the books. Instead, you chose to inject unnecessary politics into a great series, and your contempt for the story drove away one of the best actors in the business.
And that is 100% truth. Beyond any doubt. All they had to do was show respect for the series and the source material. That's it. It's not that hard of a request.
And now The Witcher doesn't even rival Game of Thrones at its low point. Liam pulling the heart out of the Wraith is quite symbolic of what the producers did to the show quite some time ago. Producers are like my ex, never admit their mistakes and never know when to give up. If Netflix stuck to the books, like Henry tried to, they'd be printing money like crazy. And that, my friend, is the same story for a lot of beloved stories and intellectual properties, including Star Wars, which does have something in common with The Witcher. It was ruined by a woman too. And the other thing that wasn't very surprising was the ratio and the very tepid response. It's only sitting at 1.5 million views, which is great for a lot of channels, but this is Netflix with 31.7 million subscribers. I guess the most somewhat surprising news is how much The Witcher has cost, because Forbes reported Netflix revealed it's $568 million. That's right, Netflix has revealed that it has spent $568 million on the sword and sorcery series The Witcher, making it one of the most expensive shows of all time. Forbes continues, the gamble has paid off handsomely.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
For the streamer, as The Witcher is one of the most successful shows, having been viewed for more than 1.2 billion hours. Yeah, because nothing says success like losing the star of your show over the creative direction, having former writers of the show call it out, having the writer of the source material call the show out, and almost the entire audience calling you out and then abandoning you. Let's not forget The Witcher Season 3 premiere was down 15% from The Witcher Season 2 premiere, but the worst news is by the time they got to episode 5 of Season 3, 60% of the audience was gone. And just to pile on a little bit more, let's remind Netflix that they chose the producers of this show over Henry Cavill, and the last thing they've put out has been Blood Origin and The Witcher Season 3, which, according to Rotten Tomatoes, got 13% and 19% audience scores respectively.
The numbers don't lie!
and they spell disaster for you.
And it gets worse. Thanks to The Witcher being filmed in the UK, Forbes was indeed able to figure out how much it cost. And I'm rounding up here. It was $568 million, but there was about $97 million in tax credits, making it $459 million. But the most surprising thing, and no, it's not that season 4 budget, but we'll get to that, is Blood Origin, which was $78 million after a tax credit from $95 million, making it $29 million per episode, making each episode 2 Godzilla minus ones and the entire season 8 Godzilla minus ones. Now, if you're looking at that 42 million and thinking Netflix maybe got smart and just cut the budget, you'd be wrong. These filings only go up to December of 2023, meaning that's the amount Netflix has spent before they even started shooting. The lesson here, there was a time in Hollywood where you can be an insufferable feminist hack writer taking male-oriented epic fantasy and turning it into your own personal romantasy fanfic and get paid a lot doing it. And the best thing about being a virtue signal hire, even to this day, with rare exceptions, they can't fire you. But you really showed us toxic fans Netflix is willing to spend upwards of $300 million more dollars, making the total price of The Witcher close to $750 million, all to save face. That'll teach us you'll lose more money than we could possibly imagine. I sure hope the writers of this show, along with the writers of Wheel of Time and Willow and Blood Origin and soon to be Rings of Power, save your money. Because the bad news is you won't have any more epic fantasy to destroy, because the good news is there's no more epic fantasy to destroy. I said this in my Red Sonja video, and I'll repeat it here. There was a time I would have loved to have seen Conan or Elric adapted. That time is long gone. Elric won't get adapted because it's too much like The Witcher and Game of Thrones, because The Witcher and Game of Thrones ripped it off. And Conan won't get adapted because it's pure 100% unadulterated toxic masculinity in all the best ways. Watch tomorrow, Amazon will announce Phoebe Waller-Bridge is developing a Conan show. I jest, but that's the absolute state of epic fantasy in publishing, TV, and film. Epic fantasy is not romantasy. Surprisingly enough, a bunch of dudes don't want to watch some sword and sorcery where a bunch of lesbians sit around and talk about their feelings. Other stuff, well, that's different. But leave it to modern Hollywood to make lesbians boring. They better hope some...
Yeah, no kidding. He's right, though. You know, they've destroyed the source material on so many different beloved IPs because they can't stop themselves from pushing real world modern day politics into these shows. All they have to do is honor the source material. That's all it would take. This show could have gone 7 seasons for the books and then another 3 seasons for the video games. So you're looking at 10 seasons and it's all right there. It would have been massive hits if they had just followed the source material. But we got the girl power showrunner, and she wants to burn her bra.
Content creators at least take a shot at roasting the show because they'll be the only ones watching. And I think some congratulations are in order for Lauren full of...
Okay, I'm just going to scroll back a bit because this is what I'm talking about. She looks like a frickin' ghoul with all the plastic surgery and nip tucks she's done. It's ridiculous. Hollywood needs to talk to their stars or their female, well, the men too. Like Dave Bautista looks like a fucking joke now. Like how he got, I love the Highlander original TV series, the original movie. I even like, except for the second movie, I like the other movies. I have absolutely no hope, even with Henry Cavill, for this upcoming movie because Dave Bautista looks like a frickin' scarecrow now. You know, he's gone from this muscular pro wrestler to like, he can't be over 160 pounds now. It's ridiculous. And he's supposed to play Krugen? No. Sorry. No.
I think some congratulations are in order for Lauren Fulla Schmidt Hissrich and her writers for proving one absolute truth. The worst thing to happen to storytelling in the last century is fanfic. And I guess we have to congratulate Netflix, not for spending hundreds of millions of dollars to make $0, but doing what they set out to do. They wanted to unite the Witcher book fans, the Witcher game fans, and the Henry Cavill fans. And they've done that. They hate and mock your show equally. And God knows in these dark times, we need a little unity and something to laugh at.
Nerdrotic.com.
All right, there you go. That was The Witcher Season 4 by Nerdrotic. I agree with them. Like, I have nothing but... I detest Lauren Henrich. But I detest most of modern Hollywood nowadays, if I'm being really honest. I just want to see my favorite stories be done right. You know, like they just announced casting for, not cast, but what they're looking for in the cast for the upcoming Mass Effect live action series. And, you know, it's on Amazon, so it could be like Fallout, which, if it is, I mean, we could be in for a really special show. Or it could be like Wheel of Time and Rings of Power, in which it's going to be absolute crap. So, you know, I'm sort of wavering there. I want it to be good. I really do. But I have no faith in modern Hollywood because they can't get out of their own fucking way. They can't stop pushing modern day real world politics into our fantasy and our sci-fi. Just follow the source material, people. It's not that hard to do. Follow the source material and you will have a hit. You will build an audience, and then when you are out of source material, then you can start free writing, and we'll see if you're talented enough. But at least at that point, you will have done honor, respect, dignity to the IP that you are basing your show on. So, yeah, we'll see. I don't know what to expect. I really don't. I won't be watching season 4 or season 5 of this. I'm covering this mostly because I liked his video covering it. Like, I didn't watch season 3. I tuned out about halfway through season 2, which, granted, is longer than I lasted for Wheel of Time. I only made it to episode 7 of season 1 in Wheel of Time before I shut that off, you know. So, well, we shall see, but you know, I really hope we are done with these feminist special interest activists, producers, showrunners mindset, because it plays no role in our modern entertainment. Just, if you want to write something original, I had this argument the other day with my D&D group. They were talking about James Bond, and sure enough, the left-winger in our group is like, oh, I wanted Urbis Aldry to be James Bond. And I'm like, why? He's a great actor. I'm not taking anything away from him. He is a fantastic actor. Why can't they write an original spy thriller for him? Don't call it James Bond, because we know what the James Bond character is. We know what he looks like. We know what he's supposed to be. Call it 016 or something, and create a movie for Urbis so he can hopefully knock it out of the park. You create a new franchise, he gets his show, everybody wins. Why do you have to change an existing character to fit a political demographic? You know, and I said the same thing for those that wanted a female James Bond. We know James Bond is male. Why do you have to change what already exists? As I said, I loved Atomic Blonde. Why can't they write another original spy thriller for a female lead? Why does it have to ruin an existing IP? That is my problem. They could have wrote an original fantasy series for the women. It could have been gay, and it could have been lesbian lovers and romance everywhere, and it would have had no viewership. And that's why they did it on The Witcher. Is the same as Wheel of Time, same as Ring of Power. They took a known IP with a built-in fan base, and then they butchered it for their own fanfic, because they thought maybe that fan base would stick with them. But the fan bases don't stick with them. We know that now. You destroy the source material, the fan base leaves, and then you're left with nothing. and you cancel. We saw it in Wheel of Time. Ring of Power is going to get canceled probably at the end of the season 3. And this one's been canceled already. They're filming 4 and 5 at the same time. So, is what it is. I'm just tired of it. I just want good entertainment that I enjoy. That's it. And hey, if we can get some real writers that can write a unique new series, awesome. But if you load it up with special interests and political messaging and rah, 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 it's going to fail. Just like the rest of them. Just like the games nowadays that do it in the computer games, they fail. The TV series, they fail. The movies, they fail. At what point does Hollywood wake up? I don't know. Anyway, that's my video for today. If you like the video, leave a like, a subscribe, and a share. I'm trying to grow my channel, and a like, a subscribe, and a share does me wonders, and I do appreciate it. Takes 1 second to subscribe, costs you absolutely nothing, helps me immensely. Just hit the subscribe button on the bottom of the screen. And as always, pew, 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 and shit. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.